We live in a very masculine world. And I'm not putting the masculine down. I love it. Like there's parts of us that we need that. But how we show up at work it's not necessarily how we need to show up in our household. It's not necessarily how we need to show up in our relationships with our king, with our husbands. My beautiful queens, I am so happy to be here with you all. Excited to talk about this new topic. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on. We find ourselves in our little Queen's Corner, and hopefully you have made yourself your own Queen's Corner. Wherever you find yourself, there's always space for you to make a space that belongs to you and only you. And it could be, with a candle, with a flower, or with just like your yoga mat, whatever it is, like allow that time and the space to be fully yours, because it's so important for us to come back and to nourish our soul, our bodies, our minds. If we don't do that, nobody's going to do it for you. So today we're talking about a topic that we could have probably for a couple of days, but we're going to just have some questions that, we've come up from our Facebook page. And if you're following us, or if you haven't followed us, come to the Facebook page. It's a beautiful community of women who think alike, are learning to think alike, and are asking questions, feel vulnerable enough and loved enough because it's a safe place for you to ask. All these questions have come from a place like we're not judging, we're not pointing the fingers, because we've all gone through some of this in our lives at some point in our lives, so we could all resonate. And hopefully these questions help. Hopefully this information allows you to think and gives you the insight of like, okay, well, maybe it's not just me. Maybe I'm not alone. I find myself in this place right now where I've been married for 22 plus years, 22, it's going to be 23 years, September. And every year it teaches me something new. Not to say that it's been easy, but it's just been so worth it for me to take the lessons of my marriage. And it's a beautiful place when you allow yourself to continue to fight for what you have. That's really what it is. Like you fight for what you have because you know that it's there for a reason. So let's get on to the questions. Let's see what questions you have that we could start to answer.
Okay, great. So speaking about masculine, feminine energy, it can get really tricky, especially nowadays with the whole women empowerment movement.
Oh, yeah.
So there's so much, trying to take control, and I wear the pants, and the battle between the two.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the biggest questions that we're getting asked is just for women specifically that are very, career oriented, they're bosses at work. How is it that they can manage to be that driven, just go at work, but then coming home and then having like this expectation to also be fun and flirtatious and loving and nurturing, because they just were doing all this other stuff. And, it's hard to even just come off of that. Mm-hmm. And then how do they reconnect with their partner and not bring that energy home?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. And I feel like, we live in a very masculine world. And I'm not putting the masculine down. I love it. Like there's parts of us that we need that. But how we show up at work it's not necessarily how we need to show up in our household. It's not necessarily how we need to show up in our relationships with our king, with our husbands. So that's the battle that I see a lot with women that, we're out there in the work field, and we need to have that energy of the masculine energy. And the masculine energy, just so you understand, is one that it's very focused, it's driven, it's very rigid, and sometimes it's really necessary. But if we carry that with us all the time, we women I'm talking about, it brings us to a place where our bodies feel depleted. Like it's just too much for us to live that way, right? And it's not that it's right or it's wrong. It's just like, is it useful for you at certain points in your life? And so when we are at work, yes, it's necessary. Yes, it's important. But do you want to be with that energy for the whole day?
Right. No.
Right? Because it's not useful the whole day.
No.
So I think is us having this consciously being able to connect to, is it useful or not? And when is it or not?
Mm-hmm.
And the feminine energy is one, the opposite of it. Like it's just an energy. And the feminine energy is one that it's so free. It's so enchanting. It's still like, it's powerful. I think, sometimes we think that it's not, and we make it like it's less than, and we feel like, well, the masculine is the one that's going to get everything done. Not necessarily. Like it could also be the feminine. The feminine has so much power. It has so much wisdom. There is so much behind it, but we don't give it the credit that it deserves.
Absolutely.
At least I didn't for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a struggle. I think even, with the feminine, I feel like what is almost instantly thought of is just breaking down and in tears or something. Yeah, just emotional.
Very
just
emotional.
Like, but it really actually can be a way to, I've had issues in my marriage where I'm trying to, battle it out instead of just like speaking to what's on my heart.
Yeah.
Because I feel like maybe I'm not safe in the moment. So I need to like come up at him and be defensive.
Of course.
But as soon as I've like released that and let it go and just broken down, if that's what I needed to do, that actually helped me. It helped me for him to see and like really be with me in the moment and see, oh, this is what's going on. This is what's underneath it.
Yeah.
And love me in that, rather than he has given me feedback like, why don't you just do that sooner? Why do we have to go through all of this other stuff? Why can't we just get there faster?
Yeah. Because that's exactly what happens with like with men is, like they are created to protect, to provide, and to procreate, right? And if we, for some reason, are in their way and thinking like, okay, like you're saying, like you're fighting with each other, you're not here to protect me. I'm going to take care of myself.
Right.
Like I got this.
Yes.
I don't need you at all.
No.
So then how do you create that wall for them? It's like, oh, okay, so you got this. I'm just going to walk away. You got this. So maybe I need to be more forceful. I don't know, whatever comes through for them.
Right.
So I think it's really important for us to be conscious of like, how do we operate? Do we make the feminine wrong? Are we living just in our masculine? What is it that we need to really be seeing more than just what's in front of us? Like, what do we really need to see and be open to?
I feel too when we are, for example, when I come home from a day's work or something like that, it can be difficult for me to have like this open heart. Like I'm still in like driven results mode that when he comes home from just as hard of a day or harder sometimes, he wants to feel, seen and heard. Just because he's a man doesn't mean he doesn't have those needs.
Okay.
And so I feel like it's hard for me to meet him where he is sometimes in his needs when I'm.
Yeah. That happens all the time. So one of the things that's super important that if you're listening to this, something that we often don't have is how do we go from like one energy to the next, right? Especially when, for instance, you're coming from work home, or you're going from home to work, or you're going from home to the bedroom, like wherever it is. I want you to start thinking, especially if I paint the picture for you of this, it's called a transition period. And in that transition period, like how do you go from one point to the other? And for a lot of women, it's very difficult to go from the day's work into being lovable, melting into your husband's arms, and even wanting a sexual experience It's really difficult because we're not even thinking. Our radar is not in there. We've done through so much throughout the whole day that there is no space in our mind for anything else. But if I could give you this gift of having a transition period, you're transitioning from, just for instance, for this conversation, from our more masculine energy into the feminine energy. And within the feminine energy, there are two energies that I like to talk about, which is our mother energy and our temptress energy. And if you go from a point A to point B, like allow yourself to find what do you need in your life at that moment to transition, like to go from point A to point B. My husband is so cute. He comes home and he wears a Next Level t-shirts all the time. That's the name of the company. And he goes from one Next Level t-shirt, then he goes upstairs. He runs all the way up to the closet. And I pretty much get out of his way when he comes through the door. Like I greet him, I say hi to him, I kiss him, and then I give him his space and he goes upstairs to the closet and he changes his t-shirt from one Next Level t-shirt to the next Level t-shirt. But just in that change for him, it's so huge because it's like he lets go of whatever happened throughout the day and he puts on something else. That's his thing. Mine, a transition period for me is a very big one. It's like my night routines. So the whole day I'm doing something. And if you are listening to this, you could relate. You're like, the Uber, you're the psychologist, you're the teacher, you're the businesswoman, you are the nanny, you are everything, right? And so we need to have the transition period. And for me, it's really like taking care of my body and nourishing my body, nourishing my soul, especially when I want to spend time with my man. And I get into my shower, I physically wash off the day, just shower with nice warm or cold water, wash off the day, come out of my whether it's the tub or whether it's just a quick shower, and lather some beautiful lotion on that feels really soothing and smooth in my body, and loving every part of my body and the aroma of it, and putting something on that makes me feel sexy and comfortable. Now, just that alone, if you could picture that in your head, like how amazing that transition feels from one place to the other, whether it's you going to bed with that energy or going, to the bedroom with your husband or just doing whatever it is that you need to do. But like just having that transition is such a difference because it's not just like on and off. It's like, I'm here, I'm there. But it's like you allow yourself, you consciously cultivating that transition from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And that's something that we as women don't incorporate and don't have. Even men, they don't have it. So if you're listening to this and you find yourself that you feel stuck on that masculine energy and you can't connect to the feminine, it could be because you're not having this transition time to go from one to the next.
Right. Yeah. I feel like unintentionally, I feel like I created a transition period for myself because, I have smaller kids.
Okay.
So just, imagine you have, food in your hair, on your clothes. It's just everywhere. There's, the kids like to play with slime.
Yeah.
There's just stuff everywhere. So I feel like I was taking always 2 showers a day, but in the night, it's just something that I have space and time to myself to just rinse it all away and all the troubles, all the things that happened throughout the day that I needed to release.
Yeah. And we have to ask for that. Like we sometimes feel like we as women, we're not worthy of it, but we need to ask for that time. We need to like make it clear. Again, if you didn't hear the other podcast, we talked about boundaries. Like it's so important for us to create that boundary for ourselves and know like, well, this is important to me right now. So I need to create that boundary in order for me to have this transition period, in order for me to be a different person, in order for me to like, love on myself and my husband.
Yeah. And it's a normal need. It's not asking for too much. I feel like most women that we talk to are like, oh, but he already has to do this, or I can't ask. Like it's totally necessary and normal.
Yes. So true. So true. So hopefully that helps. The transition period is super, super important. It's something that if you incorporate into your life, you will start to see the changes in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%. Any other question that you have?
So the next big question that we really have is just, while it's great to be able to transition and to know how to kind of shift from one to the other, we want to understand, how are you able to create somewhat of a balance? Because, you know, like what we're saying, like you're coming home and it's almost easy to stay in one. So how are you able to switch, but also keep it somewhat balanced? Because I feel like a lot of women, like we're talking about, just are very much staying in one. And usually oftentimes it's masculine, because that's actually what's being rewarded nowadays.
Right.
So how do we create balance in that?
And that's so true. I really feel like the masculine is something that we look up to. But I think the more that we tap into like, what are some really beautiful feminine traits that we could cultivate and bring forth into relationships? Once we start to do that, then we realize as women, like it's so much easier than we think to cultivate the feminine and to be truly in that. And I know that's something that my husband does for me all the time, which I'm so grateful to him, because I didn't really see like almost like the value that we have in this beautiful feminine traits. And he always tells me like, one of the things that we as women do that the feminine does, and not that the masculine doesn't, but the way that we have the power to create is it's beyond anybody's ability. Like we have that ability to create, and the way that we do it, it's amazing. And we don't really allow ourselves to be there so long. You know, and even the fact, if you think about it, like we are the only species that gets to create. Like we are co-creators with God. He gives us the power to birth a new life, and nobody has that except us, like our feminine. And if we could collectively start to see like how amazing we are as women, how much we do, how much we give, how the beauty that we have, the radiance that we create, like all of that, we start to feel how important it is. And then again, not to make the masculine wrong, but we don't need to live there the whole time. We need to create. Like there's just times like I tell my kids, I'm like, okay, well, I have to put my big girl panties and I have to like, you know, go do what I got to do, because there's times that you have to step into that masculine energy and be result oriented and go and to the certain point, to the certain target. Us women, the feminine, is just so free that it's just open to so many possibilities, and it gets enchanted by so many different things. And I love that about the feminine. Like, and that's, you know, you have small girls, so you get to see them like how beautiful it is to really take that energy of like the freedom that they feel to just be girls. If they want to dance, if they want to cry, if they want whatever it is that they want to do, like sometimes it's like an ocean of emotions and we don't understand it. And because when we don't understand something, we make it wrong.
Yes. I feel like even now I really have to work at it, because I know that in my house, the way I grew up, it wasn't okay. I was never allowed to feel, have emotions. I was usually actually miss positivity. So anytime that I showed up in like a off place, it was like, what's going on? Why are you like, just fix it. Like, come back.
Right. So they didn't allow you to be fully into all your emotions.
And then sometimes I see myself get triggered by my girls, because you like what you said is absolutely 100% on it. It's just all the time.
It's an ocean. It's an ocean of all these emotions, and it's all okay, because that's who the feminine is. We're so boundless, right? And then we put our feminine into this restrictions and limitations of what it should look like, what the world tells you she has to be, the feminine has to be. But you get to do the rules. You get to create that. You get to remember, like, who is she? And she is powerful. She's beautiful. She's all those things. And we can't continue to make her like it's less than. I would say, Jess, if you're listening to this, it's like, when is she useful? When is the masculine useful? It's just energies. How do we play with both of them? How do we get to truly be in, consciously pick and have this beautiful dance between, like, do I need the feminine? Do I need the masculine? Do I need a little bit more of the feminine when I'm with my man? Can I let go? Can I be vulnerable? Can I be open? Can I surrender a little deeper? like there's power in that. And I know when I've done that with my husband, like we've had some amazing conversations because he says like the ice queen comes down, and it's the ice queen is usually like when we're fighting at something. And, you know, my ice queen could be very masculine. She could be just like, I'm here to protect you. And it comes from a place of fear. It comes from a place of just, you know, not wanting to get hurt. It's kind of like our primal, you know?
Yes.
And I will end with this. The feminine has a beautiful, like divine feminine features. And we also have the, you know, the not so divine. I don't know what's another word for it. I'm kind of drawn blank, but, we could have both energies and also have shadow parts to them, you know, because we could use our feminine and not use it to the best of our abilities. And that's where we have to catch ourselves too. Or we could use our feminine and actually use it for manipulate or, you know, we don't want that either. So I think it's just, if you're hearing this, it's something that you consciously see yourself as this queen that comes up and shows up in that mentality. And which one do you need at that moment? Which one was useful or not useful? And that's the feminine masculine dance that we find ourselves. I feel like every single day, every single moment of our lives, like we have that question. We have that in our heads. So when you get to choose, when you are the chooser of that experience, then everything changes.
Everything.
Yeah. I hope that this was helpful.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your questions. Thank you for listening to us. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Follow us on our Facebook page, Born to Be a Queen page. And we just want to thank you for being here. But mostly remember that you were created and you were born to be that queen.